All right, we are ready to read the story Ye Shen, which is a fairy tale from China. This is in lesson 28 of your Journeys book, and it would be great if you would follow along in your books on page 456. This story, or the illustrator, is by Jill Dubin. She created the art for the story, which is kind of unique. The author is Gina Sabela. Before we jump into the story, I'm going to back up one page. This week we are focusing on something called sequence of events. And that is making sure you're paying attention to the order of how things happen in a story. So typically we think about what happens first in a story, and then next, and then last. So while I'm reading today, I am going to stop every once in a while and have you put some events of the story in order. What happened first, next, and then last. So make sure you're paying attention to the sequence of events. It really helps you understand a story if you pay attention to the order of how things happen. Ye Shen. Ye Shen was a girl who grew up in China a long, long time ago. Her mother and father had died, so she lived with her mean stepmother, Jin, and her stepsister, Jun Li. They lived in a cave. Ooh, that's weird. Every time Jin looked at Ye Shen, she became angry. Ye Shen was gentler and kinder than Jin's own daughter, Jun Li. Ye Shen was also a hard worker. Jun Li was spoiled and lazy. Jin gave Ye Shen only rags to wear. She gave her a long list of chores to do. When Ye Shen finished one task, Jin added 3 more to the list. So there's 3 characters in the story so far. There's the main character, Ye Shen. So she is an orphan. Her parents died, so she lives with her stepmother, Jin. Here's Jin. And Jin has another daughter named Jun Li, who's spoiled and lazy. So if you know the Cinderella story, we know that Ye Shen is kind of like Cinderella. Ye Shen was always busy working. She did not have a chance to make many friends, but she did have one very special friend. This friend had golden eyes, glimmering scales, and a big, beautiful tail. It was a fish that lived in the pond. Every day, Ye Shen stopped by the pond and shared some crumbs with the fish. And every day, the fish popped up to greet its friend. Ye Shen's stepmother saw this and became furious. That means angry. She didn't want Ye Shen to have any friends, not even a fish. One day, Jin caught the fish and cooked it for dinner. That's so mean. All right, I want you to think about the events of the story so far, and we're going to put them in order: first, next, and last. So here are the 3 events. Ye Shen lived with her mean stepmother because her parents had died. Ye Shen became friends with a fish, but then her stepmother cooked it for dinner. And Ye Shen always had to work, but her stepsister Jun Li didn't have to do anything. All right, see if you can use your finger and make a little line between those to see if you know what happened first, next, and last. So let's start with first. What happened first? Anybody know? Yeah, first we know that she lived with her mean stepmother. What happened next? We learned that she had to do lots and lots of work, even though her stepsister didn't have to do anything. And last, of course, she became friends with that poor fish who ended up getting cooked. All right, that's first, next, and last. All right, let's go to the next page. Ye Shen cried when she saw her friend served for dinner. She ran out of the cave and sat by the pond. "What's the matter?" an old man asked her. Ye Shen told him about her friend, the fish, and then she told him what her stepmother had done. "Listen carefully to me," the old man said. "The bones of that fish hold special powers. Take the bones and bury them in 4 pots. Put 1 pot at each corner of your bed. Whenever you need help, tell the bones what you need. They will make your every wish come true. Ye Shen followed the old man's directions. When she got back to the cave, she buried the bones in 4 pots. Then she put the pots by the corners of her bed. She did not have anything to ask for yet, but she felt content or happy, knowing that her friend was close by. A few weeks later, the spring festival arrived. At the festival, young men and women could meet. They hoped to fall in love and marry. Jin didn't want to ruin Jun Li's chances of finding a husband, so she ordered Ye Shen to stay home and clean. And then she and Jun Li went to the festival. I bet you can guess what's going to happen next. Ye Shen did not want to stay home and clean. For the first time since she buried the bones, she had a wish. I wish I had beautiful clothes, she said to the bones. I wish I could go to the festival. I wish I could be like all the other girls. As soon as Ye Shen said the words, something amazing happened. She was covered in the finest clothes from head to toe. Her old, worn shoes were replaced by a pair of slippers made from silk. Ye Shen was overjoyed and grateful for the gifts from her friend. She ran off happily to the festival. Everyone at the festival stopped to stare at Ye Shen when she walked in. Who was this beautiful girl in the magnificent clothes? Ye Shen had a wonderful time at the festival, but she was worried that her stepmother would notice her. She decided to hurry home, but she ran so fast that one of her silk slippers fell off. It lay in the middle of the road. It was the only sign that Ye Shen had visited the festival. At home, Ye Shen stuffed her new clothes into the pots. She concealed or hid her one silk slipper too. She changed into her rags and waited for her stepmother to return. Meanwhile, a traveler found the silk slipper on the road. He knew it was valuable or worth a lot, so he gave it to the king. The king was curious to find the owner of the slipper, so he had his men build a hut. I think this is supposed to be a hut here. Anyone could come to this hut to try on the silk slipper. Ye Shen heard about the hut. She wanted her slipper back, so she sneaked out of the cave one night and ran quietly to the hut. As she crept towards the slipper, the king's men grabbed her. The king took one look at Ye Shen's rags and thought she was a thief. Ye Shen looked up at the king. Her eyes were filled with tears. The king saw how gentle and kind she was. He listened to her words. Please, I will show you the other slipper, Ye Shen whispered to the king. Ye Shen led the king to her home. She put on the matching silk slipper and her fine clothes. The king knew then that he wanted to marry her. However, he was angry at how Jin, remember that's her evil stepmother, and Jun Li, the sister, had treated Ye Shen. He told them to never come to his castle, so they stayed in their cave for the rest of their lives. All right, so let's think about this last couple pages and what happened first, next, and last. So the events that you need to think about here are Ye Shen showed the king her slipper, and the king wanted to marry her. A traveler found a silk slipper on the road and gave it to the king. Or Ye Shen tried to get her slipper back. What happened first? Think about it for a minute. Did she show the king the slipper first when they wanted to get married? Did the traveler find the slipper, or did she try to get the slipper back? That is the answer. So after the traveler found the slipper and gave it to the king, what happened? Yeah, she tried to get the slipper back. And finally, Ye Shen showed the king her slipper and the king wanted to marry her. Good job. Tomorrow we will read a story similar to Ye Shen called Cinderella. And I'm sure you guys know this story. It's very similar. There's a lot of things that are the same between Cinderella and Ye Shen. They are both fairy tales, but the one we just read is a version from the country of China. I hope you enjoyed this story, And I bet you guys are pretty good now at thinking about the sequence of events. What happened first, next, and then last. Great job.